and TV.
Very sad state of affairs, and we hope that this can actually be reversed to ensure that every child is able to achieve their goal of attending school. Well, back to studio and to our conversation of the day. This Tuesday morning, we are focusing on sibling rivalry. It's something we talk about amongst ourselves, perhaps are aware of the same amongst our institutions as a family. But then again, either you found a way to deal with it or you're still struggling on how to handle it. And this morning, would like to talk about what the reasons are and how exactly we can ensure that we set ourselves up in a way that we deal with this in a healthy manner and ensure that we also safeguard the institution that is the family. And to help us have this conversation this morning, Dr. Rose Kwamboka Misati, who is a certified family trauma specialist or professional, you can call it that. We're also joined by Frida Owinga, who is an entrepreneur and also a life coach. And also joining us in the other studio, two ladies, Ruth Nyamu, who is a graduate student, and Monique Strohmeyer, who is an infection prevention and control nurse. Thank you, ladies, for being part of this conversation. And just in case you're wondering why we have the ladies, well, it seemed that they're the ones who are open to having this conversation. The gentlemen, the challenge is to you for you to engage us on that question of the day. Have you experienced sibling rivalry in your family? How have you handled it? Have you experienced this in your family, and how have you been able to handle it? Talk to us. That hashtag is new normal, and you can reach us using that number that will be at the bottom of your screen. Now, to kickstart off this conversation, Rose, let's first define this sibling rivalry.
Thank you so much. This is a critically important discussion because sibling rivalry affects virtually all siblings. If you think about your family, personally thinking about my family of origin, my current family, the families I work with, virtually every family is affected or has been affected by sibling rivalry. And to define it, I will simplify it. These are fights, squabbles, or bickering between siblings. And I want us to separate it from bullying. Bullying is different because bullying refers to where one sibling has more power. So they will be beating up another one, they'll be taking advantage, or they'll be hurting. So here we are talking about an equal power situation where the siblings are complaining, they're bickering, or they're fighting over toys, over food, over chores, over competing for the love of the parent. Yeah, that's what we're talking about today.
So, Rose, are we saying that it is inevitable to actually experience rivalry amongst siblings?
In fact, it may even be a good thing. You know why I say that? Because home is a training ground where children learn skills. So this is a place children are going to learn conflict resolution skills, anger and stress management. It is largely inevitable, and it is a good thing. It is a positive. Because there's conflict all over, we will have to confront. We confront situations everywhere. So children need to learn these skills from home.
All right.
So we are looking at it, can I just say, as a necessary evil, that it is a good thing that can be a force for good.
Okay.
Yes.
So for purposes of this conversation, and the reason why we are spotlighting it is to underscore the fact that it is inevitable but manageable, right?
It is manageable. And it becomes problematic when it extends to adulthood and it fractures relationships. That's when there is a problem. Yes.
Okay, now that we have that context, you understand exactly the objective of this conversation. Let's hear from those that walk in these shoes. And I'll start off with Monique Strohmeyer. When you hear sibling rivalry, how is that defined within the institution that you grew up in?
Sibling rivalry, like Dr. Rose said, is something that is natural. It is something that is healthy. Can you hear me? It's something that is healthy. It is something that in society you expect it. And it's something that when nurtured properly, it can be very healthy. It's something that I think, like she said, a lot of families are going through it. We've grown through it. And it can be inspiring. Yet, when it's not managed properly, it can challenge families. And for me, I look at it that it's something that I'll say about my parents. My parents handled it very well. We grew up with it, having been a family of 6 children. every child having a position in their family. And, you know, from being from the firstborn to the secondborn to the lastborn, every one of us was facing that rivalry.
Okay, and how would you define that? What born were you? Let's start from there.
When I'm the second of 6 children,
Okay.
and of course, when the other children are born, you get jealous of them, and your position in the family sometimes is challenged a little bit. But as we grew older, it gets different. That rivalry can be something that propels you to greatness, or it's something that can break you. And how it defines your life is how the parents handle it. Let me say that.
Okay, so Monique, when you think back growing up, second-born, first you have a firstborn who's already in charge, you check in, and perhaps the firstborn is thinking, who is this who's come to take away my my space? Did you ever have bickering with the firstborn? Did you ever have pull and tags as a kid when you remember things?
Of course, that is natural in every family. You know, when you come in after your first child is the only child, it is natural that when a second child is born, of course, there's that, you know, you'll fight over toys, you'll fight over mommy's attention, you'll fight over daddy's attention. That one is natural in every family. It's not unique to my family. And, you know, as more children are born, that rivalry, it still goes on. Now, when the children are younger, that is expected. As they grow older, you go into the school age session, and now in that age now, who becomes number one, who is more praised, the rivalry shifts. And then as you grow older, it also starts moving from who's the better athlete, who's the best student. And sometimes, you know, when one child is praised over the other, it naturally causes the others to feel a certain way. Now, there's that natural piece of it. And what happens is that the one who's praised, sometimes it makes the others feel jealous. And that's not unique to any family. And then, but later on in life, if it is nurtured in a positive way, it becomes a propelling factor into greatness.
Okay.
Where when you see one excelling and you are told, oh, you know, your sister has gone so far, your brother has gone so far, it can be inspiring. So sibling rivalry is natural, but it depends on how it is curtailed. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, makes a lot of sense. Let's hear Ruth's definition of this from where she sits. Ruth, how have you experienced this?
For me, it's, well, I'll give the example of my parents. My parents were 3 children. I'm the firstborn. And for me, sibling rivalry, like everyone has said, it's a natural process. You have to have a fight here and there with your brother, your sister. But for me, the one thing that has stood out for me was when parents understand your temperaments and how they find ways to manage all of you on an even basis. Because we know that parents will raise their children like with the same, let me say, like in a classroom setup, yeah? But when they get to a certain age, they get to a point they see that this one is different from this one. She likes this one doesn't like this. How can I make them work together as a team? So I really, really appreciate that element of what I got to experience from my parents, and even how they managed our positions, that when we were in conflict every single time, they always found ways to just bring us together and say that she's different, you're different, but appreciate each other's differences. And even so, as we grew up, went through different lines of career, different lines. Our characters are very different. And yeah, so far, I think for me, sibling rivalry is like Dr. Rose said, it's a necessity. It's a very good necessity. But if not controlled, it can become very terrible.
Okay.
Like for any family, yeah.
All right. What born are you?
Firstborn. I'm the firstborn of 3.
Interesting. So would you say perhaps growing up you had 2 other siblings who are looking at you as the firstborn who is in charge, and we wish we were them, you know?
Yeah. So the pressure is there. You feel that one, you don't want to let your parents down. You don't want to let your siblings down. You want to ensure that you pick the best of careers, make the best of decisions. But in the long run, you find that they will definitely appreciate you no matter what you decide, because that's who you want to be, that's what you love, that's what you want to do. So the pressure of being a firstborn sometimes was, and it's still always there. It has always sometimes been, it's too much on me. Can you just try and shed it off the rest? As opposed to just keep on looking at me. And along the way, you find that you have now fights over such elements that I'm feeling too pressured. I'm feeling that this is too much for me. I'm feeling that you guys are just looking at me, expecting everything. And sometimes it's necessarily not the case. I always say that as a firstborn, we're usually the experiment. So you find that a parent gets to learn how to be a parent with the first child before they can take it to the second and the third. And so you find there are things that they will implement in your life as opposed to what they would implement in the second and third born.
Yeah.
And along the way, such elements, you'd find now you start feeling, you didn't do this for her, but you've done it for me. Why? So if a parent is not able to now, in such a setting, control and state that, well, with you probably things are a bit different and probably I have learned. Also, maybe for parents to become a bit vulnerable, because I feel like most of our parents are scared to be very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So if they can be a bit vulnerable and say, okay, there maybe I made a mistake and I am sorry and stuff like that. But for me, being a firstborn, again, it was managed in a very fair and high discipline way. So I was also able to now, over time, because initially it was a bit difficult, but over time I was able to understand, oh yeah, now this is what they meant, this is why they do it.
I hear you.
Yeah, so and it trickled down even to the rest.
All right, so, yeah. And we'll get to hear more from you and Monique in a moment. Let's bring in Frida Owinga. Now, Frida, as much as you are an entrepreneur life coach, you have a background of your own. When you think about sibling rivalry, we are saying it's part and parcel of life. How was it managed growing up? Because you grew up at in a different generation.
I did. Thank you so much, Gladys, for having me. I did grow up in a different generation where we didn't have a lot of things that are being suggested for parents to do right now. But I loved my parents. I was the youngest of 6. And sibling rivalry was normally around food, because food, we had ugali and sukuma wiki most of the time. So there was a lot of rivalry when there was meat in the house, because we had 3 pieces of meat and the favored one sometimes had more than 3, and we would fight over it. So talking about coming fast forward today, I have my own children. I have 3 young adults in my house, and I've realized that how we handle sibling rivalry when at home will determine how adults handle rivalry in the workplace and beyond. So it became very critical for me to look at how I handle my sons when they're not aligned in what they need to do. And also, we come from a blended family. So one of the things that I observed is sometimes parents want to treat children equally, but it's better to treat them fairly. And for them to be treated fairly, we need to let them understand what is at stake and what are the, almost like saying, what are the rules of the game. So it's not so much about equal but fair, because we'll never be equal. But every child is an individual and brings a different strength. For instance, 2 of my sons, there's one of my sons, he's a logistics person even till today, and procurement. He likes to drive, he can drive anything, all right? And he likes being sent when he was young. So I used to think that I'm sending him too much, so maybe I should also send the second one. And one day the second one told me, the second one is he's an IT guru. He likes tinkering with things. Even when he was young, he was always breaking things apart. Today he creates computers, he does websites and stuff like that. He builds computers. So when they were young, I'll tell the second one to, why don't you help, the older one, all right?
Yeah.
The Peter and Clem. So I'd say, Peter, help Clem. And he said, Clem likes being sent. Why are you disturbing me? Why don't you just send him? And also, if I didn't send Clem, Clem would feel, why am I now sending Junior and not sending him? Because I realize it's not about being equal, but about being fair. What is their strength? What do they love to do? Allow them to do that without overdoing it, all right? So I've noticed that helped us, help them grow as individuals, but also help them to participate in what we're doing at home. So my key takeout would be treat them fairly, not equally, let them know what is at stake, help them understand their strengths and how they can support each other. So we have more of a cooperative environment than a competitive environment, because that is what they take outside. The Bible says, train a child in the way that they should go, and they won't turn away from it when they're older. So as parents, if we create a competitive environment at home, that will spill over into the society, and then it won't be too good for us.
Okay, Frida, I like that perspective because you also speak as a parent. You come in as a parent and you will also be connecting as to how now, as you mentioned, sibling rivalry looks like in adulthood. And Rose, I think listening to the ladies, the causes of sibling rivalry have been touched here and there.
Yes, yes.
And also, I think it's coming to the fore that there's actually a difference between equal and fair. How do you instill that in these children that are growing up? All are yours, but you're supposed to look at them fairly, but they're still equal. It's confusing for a parent.
So let's first of all begin from a place where we are saying the parent is the captain of the ship. So the parent is the one directing the household because children are depending on adults. And so the parent needs to be emotionally present for them to connect and understand the strengths of each child. I like the way Frida has brought it up and even nurtured. I can say she has nurtured even their talent, their gifting, and they are in careers that actually, can I just say, they are aligned to their gifting. So you must be present. You cannot parent by remote and get to understand the children. And I really like that perspective. Children or humans do not need to be treated equally because we are not the same, but they need to be treated individually, or fairly, actually. Fairly or individually. That means the way we love people, the way they experience love is different. For one child, it may be that when they cook with you as a parent, that's when they feel loved. Another one, when they go out to eat. So if you go out every day, the one who likes to cook with you will feel unloved. So you need to understand, and then feedback. I like what Frida said, talking to them, getting feedback. How do you feel about this? When I do this, how do you feel? Do you feel appreciated? Do you feel loved? Do you feel nurtured? And then avoid comparing and contrasting siblings. Like sometimes the way parents say, why is it that you're the one who is always breaking things? Why is it that you're the one who is always arguing? Why is it that you're the one who is talking back? Be like your brother. Your brother is so calm and cool and gentle, but you're the one, you are making noise. They are not the same, they are different, and they are gifted very differently. So do not verbalize whereby you compare them, but always let them know that they are special, they are different, and your role as a parent is to nurture that difference because they are not a clone. They are not your clone, and they are not a clone of each other, but they are very different. So that is critically important. Again, just to say, the parent is the one steering this process, not the children.
Very well said. Yes. And I see both Monique and Ruth really nodding their heads because they agree with this. Ruth, let me start with you. This resonates very well with you. Talk about this, and perhaps you can give us a personal experience that hits home.
It really does. It really does. Because I think until the point I am right now, it's when I think I'm in a space, even with my parents, that they have come to now form into treating us fairly, but differently. And this I say because being, like I said, we are three. Myself, I'm a training counseling psychologist, and my sister is a forensic scientist, whereas my brother is a hopeful architect. So technically, we are all in different fields. So, but over time, I felt that there was a time that initially we used to be compared a lot because the expectation was for the name of the house. All of us needed to be at par, that we are keeping to the standard of the house. But moving along now, our various paths and our various character formations, I think it became that for me personally that I do not want essentially to do what my parent wants. And at some point that brought a lot of strife. And so in that regard, it was always, how comes you're not becoming like so-and-so, you're not becoming like your sister, how comes you're not excelling in the same? But then you find you're nurturing and you're desiring other things, other aspects of your life. And until a certain age is when now my parents now saw that, okay, yeah, her love for some things is a bit different from probably her siblings, and let's see how this goes, and to the point that I am in. So I totally agree with what Dr. Rose and Frida has said, that treating siblings in a fair manner, but remembering that they're each individuals is an important, I really can't emphasize that further, it's a really important need for even children as they grow and as they develop, because they get to appreciate even themselves in the space that they're in the mind, the way they think, the way they talk, the way they express themselves. I feel like it's one of those things that when we nurture that at a very early age, you get to create a very well-founded and well-grounded individual who knows and can establish themselves in various forms, but is very focused as to what exactly that they want to actually be. And even in regards to even managing conversations with your siblings, it would even be easier, because even for them and within their own circles as siblings, they're able to appreciate each other's strengths and just embrace those strengths and not necessarily pin down the weaknesses.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear you. Monique, I mean, you are a parent yourself, so you understand that our parents really did the best they could, and they thought by comparing you with the next person, they're just trying to give you morale, you know, give you the boost that you need to up your game. But then again, it leaves you feeling, you know, as if I'm not as good as the next person, you know, perhaps falling shy of what should be the expectation of the family. Talk about the impact of that feeling.
Well, growing up, yes, like I said, we were 6 of us, and our parents were disciplinarians, and they continue to be so. Whereas they were strict, they made us realize that each of us were unique individuals, in that each of us had unique talents. Each of us, you know, were not the same. There was no comparison. There was comparison per se, but kila mtu, you know, where you could do your own thing and you could excel in your space. When we were younger, it was kind of tough. But as we grew older, one of the best things that I think from my mom and dad is assuring us that regardless of where you are in life, regardless of where you are in the family setting, you remain an individual. Yeah, one cannot replace the other. Whereas one excels in one area, in one field area, in education or in medicine or whatever, you cannot replace the other sibling. And it's something that we've had to come to terms with, even in our adulthood. As we still compete for, you know, you always want to be daddy's favorite, you want to be mommy's favorite, you want to excel. So I think what has happened over time is that we have turned it around positively, where you want to make dad proud, where you want to make mom proud, where if my sister has done better, I want to do best, yeah? But, you know, but it's a journey. And now being a parent, I am a single mother. I am a mother of one child. And in as much as she doesn't have siblings to compete with, there are cousins now that they get to compete with, and that's a reality. So the children are able to see how the aunts and uncles are competing, and so it trickles down to our children as well.
Okay, Monique, tell me this. You said growing up it was a bit tougher. What about that childhood memory competing amongst your siblings? Do you remember clearly?
Oh, it was always, having academic backgrounds from my folks. Who's coming home with the best report card? It's always that one who will be taken out for treats. And it makes you strive that next time I want to be the one to be taken out for a treat because I want to beat my brother, I want to beat my sister. And that competition, like in any family, there are ripples here and there where you're thinking, next time I will try and sabotage you, or, and that one is natural in every family.
Okay, I hear you. Now, Rose, let's go back to that, because as we go on with this conversation, we are touching on the various causes of sibling rivalry. When it comes to excellence, schoolwork and all that, you're coming from a big family and each member has a different ability when it comes to this. And then now you see others that are being treated specially because they excelled, but maybe you're not as good as them when it comes to education. How should parents handle this? Because this is a pain point for a lot of children.
That's true. And I like what you started by saying previously. You said our parents did the best with what they had and what they knew. So we are not in any way, trying to say that our parents didn't do the best or something. But then the thing is this: anytime parents base their love or their rewards based on the performance of the children, based on the result, there's a problem. What parents need to do is that you need to reward the process, the hard work, the diligence, the commitment, and not the grades. So what we are saying is the parent is not saying if you get an A, I'll take you for a trip. But the thing is, did you consistently do your homework, study diligently? Because there are people who get A's without effort. So then if we reward them and leave the one who was committed and didn't get the A, what are we saying? We are saying the end justifies the means. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get it. And that creates a culture of unhealthy competition and performance-based. And we raised individuals who are out to please no matter what it takes. They just want to get to be the best in that context. Because yet again, we will argue that academic performance, excellence, is really not everything. What matters are the skills that got you there. So therein is a dangerous way of rewarding a child based on the results. So how it looks like, for example, if it's sports and a child scores a goal, you need to applaud them on the process. I like the way you trained for that match. If they get an A, I like the way you were committed, you worked hard. Every day you woke up early, you did your homework, and you arrived in school on time. So we are rewarding the process, and that's how we raise children who have a dedicated work ethic. Yes.
As opposed to looking at their siblings as opponents.
Exactly, as opponents. Because now we said home is a training ground. So when siblings grow in competition, they will have a lot of competition in the workplace, elsewhere. There are people who think that if you get a promotion, that means they don't have. If you get something, if you have a nice car, that means the cars are finished. And most of these things were learned from home. So we have an opportunity as parents to raise children knowing there's an abundance of everything. And we are all gifted differently. We all have skills, we have abilities, and there's so much to go around for everybody, and much of it, nobody else will even claim it.
Yeah.
So the abundance mindset.
Interesting. And Frida, when we come back from the break, I'd like you to translate that in the business world, how you've seen this translate to the person and how they view business, or they view even, workmanship amongst other team members. And we'll also come back with your feedback, even as you tell us what your experiences are with sibling rivalry and how you've been able to handle it, if at all. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Hope you're having a good start to this Tuesday. The conversation this morning is sibling rivalry. Again, as I've said and you've heard over and over again, this happens in most families. But now there are some instances where it becomes chronic, something that follows you into adulthood. So what exactly do parents need to learn in as far as giving their children the right skill set to handle rivalry amongst them and also ensure that they do not fuel some of these chronic issues that we are seeing today? We still have Dr. Rose Kwamboka-Misati, who is a certified family trauma professional, Frida Owenga, who's an entrepreneur, life coach, and also a parent, and Ruth Nyamu and also Monique Stromeyer, who also are bringing their experiences to the table. And but before we get to them, let's see what you are saying on our social media handles. That hashtag is new normal. Even as you tell us, is this something that is a reality in your family, and how are you handling it? Ken Manzo says, the thing is, parents discipline one child, leaving the others out. The thing is, you got to make them responsible for one another's mistake. Discipline them all, and equally instilling terror. We hear you, Ken. Thank you. Senator Wesa says it is common. Oscar Nasikungu, we must end this rivalry. We are now big men. In case Iwe, Acha Iwe Kiasi too, not that extreme. Lots of love, big brother. This is somebody who is actually addressing his brother. Well, talk to us. That hashtag is new normal, even as you talk to us about your experiences of the same and how you are handling it. And Rose, right there, I mean, that is a grown man speaking to the brother saying, let's talk. It does not have to be this extreme. Have you seen it really get bad?
I have seen it get really bad, that siblings don't talk to each other. Siblings don't visit each other when they're sick in hospital. Some siblings don't even attend the funeral of another sibling. It can get really messy and really painful. Yes.
And definitely we have brought news to you about sibling family members who've actually even taken each other's lives.
That's true.
Yeah, big over property and whatever squabbles in the family. So this is a reality amongst us. Now, let's bring in Frida. You are a parent, even as you bring up these boys. Of course, they are individuals, they have differences and all that. What is this thing that you're very cognizant about in as far as ensuring you shepherd them in a way that they understand it's okay not to agree? Frida, I think you're muted.
I didn't hear your question. There was a lot of cracking. Could you please repeat your question?
The question was, with your two sons, what is this that you're doing intentionally to remind them that they are different and it's okay to not see eye to eye on some matters?
Okay. One of the things, of course, they're older now. They're 31, 29, and 27. One of the things that we have agreed is we've allowed everyone to be who they are. One is a performing artist. One likes, driving and doing procurement type of things. The other one does IT. So everyone participates in the other one's life in the area of their expertise, and we appreciate that. So one of the things that we keep open is communication. We need to encourage our children to learn to talk to each other, to ask questions instead of making assumptions. Because many times I found they would make assumptions about me, how I should behave as a mother based on what they see out there, and also how they should behave towards each other. So I've learned that and that comes from my coaching background, because I'm a coach in real life. So I ask them questions. What makes you feel that way? What made you do that? Why do you think that? So when we ask questions and the other one responds, then we use that to make a more informed decision. So one of the things that is big at home is we have agreed we are going to ask questions and avoid assumptions. And also we create what we call our signature styles. How do you want to be treated? So they know if the door is closed, don't come to my room. All right, because there's one who feels I'm older, I can come into your room anytime. So we have, we have norms that we have agreed about. That's why I said treat each other fairly, not equally. So for it to be fair, you must communicate what fair is for you. How do you want to be treated? We can't guess, or we can't assume what we watch on social media and others is the standard. So to be fair, we create a standard, how we want to be treated. And the biggest thing that we keep saying is that is an assumption, ask a question. All right. What made you think that? so that you can make an informed decision.
Okay, Frida, they are grown now, but when you were bringing them up, of course they're younger, do not understand the intricacies of what's happening amongst them. How did you handle that age?
Of course, when they were younger, it was a little different because their father was around. Their father is now gone. So the father, I like what the doctor said earlier, that you are the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
So the father was the captain of the ship. He was more of a disciplinarian, more than me. So he tended to feel that I was spoiling them. But I have the thing of asking questions because my mom asked us questions. She didn't make assumptions. So one of the things that we did as a couple was understanding the 5 languages of love. Like the grown-up, the firstborn, his language of love is acts of service. He likes to do things for people. He wants you to do things for him, or he doesn't feel love. So at a very early age, we learned that that book is a great book, The 5 Languages of Love for couples, and also now they have for children. So understanding, there's one who likes touch, there's another one who doesn't like touch. So sometimes people feel you have to hug everybody. I'm not a touch person. So understanding the 5 languages of love has really helped us, so it's something that we learned early. And my husband was an older parent in that there's a big gap between our ages. So he was the captain. So being the younger person, I read things a lot because this was new for me. I was the last one in my family. I didn't see any child. So I think parents need to read, but also need to avoid stereotyping and create their own standards in their home.
That's a very good perspective. Let me start off with Monique. When you hear about the languages of love, again, 6 of you in the family, but you all experience what is considered love differently. What's your language of love, Monique?
My experience growing in a family of 6 children now, as we grew older, one thing my parents asserted is that every child is unique. Every child has got their own talent. But with the language of love, Dad has always made it very clear up to today that all children are loved equally. There's none that is loved less than the other. Regardless of their performance, their physical abilities, their academic performance, or where they are in life. That is one assertion that my parents have always made it known to all of us. My mom, God rest her soul, was an educationist, and she made it clear that every child has their own space. Every child has their own talent. I'll give an example. Whenever we have a family function, all of us have unique talents that we bring into the table. They will know Monique is the manager. They'll know my other sister is the doer. There's the diplomat in the family. And in spite of all these talents, all of us are equally loved. No child is loved more than the other. And it was that assertion through the years that has made that sibling rivalry, it's not gotten to that level where you're killing each other. You know, you all know that you have your own space. You know that Dad's heart has enough spaces for the 6 of you. Mom's heart had enough spaces for the 6 of you. And so as we've grown older, that is what has made it, palatable.
Okay, good point there. Let's hear from Ruth. Acts of service, giftings, touch. You know that list. The other 2 are what, Rose? Remind me. I think I'm losing out on the other 2.
Physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts.
There we go. So, for you, Ruth, which are your languages of love?
I would directly say I love giving. So for me, to people, it's acts of service. So like for my siblings, I'm always there for them. What do you need? Like sometimes I feel like I can't even overstep.
Yes.
And like my sister, she doesn't like that. And so I always try and manage that. But for myself, I think for me growing up, words of affirmation became a very, very important thing for me, that constantly keep on reaffirming me, constantly keep on telling me good job, no matter the small step or the big step or the greatest achievement I would have attained. And so for me, that I think over time, at some point I started feeling like, because all of us are being told, you're all good children, you're doing well, but no one is coming to you and saying, I appreciate what you've done. I see you. I thank you. For me, that became very close to my heart. And like Frida said, that how she has seen that her children are all in different temperaments. For me, I think the parenting style also impacts in regards to also how much your child would be willing to accept. Because for me now with my parents, I'm very protective of my circle of safety. I usually call it that. So for me, I think that's now how, for me, in regards to love, words of affirmation does it for me.
Okay, and do you feel that this is something you got growing up, or you craved for it?
I would say I craved for it because of particular happenings that took place in my life.
Yeah.
Over time, things that probably, there was a period in my life that I detached from my parents, and I became very withdrawn. And around me, I necessarily didn't get the whole the affirmations I probably felt that I needed at the time. And so I sought it out by myself through friends, through opportunities, through environments and various things. But eventually I still knew I had to come back home, because home is where you always feel safe. And that's something my dad always keeps on echoing, even to date, that Ruth, home is always safe for you. So wherever you go, you'll always come back. So for me, over time, now it started becoming more of a craving.
Yeah.
But now I think it's something even people around me know that it's very important.
It's very important. Yes. So did you look at the other kids and wish, oh, I wish they could tell me that so often as they do the other child? Because the age difference between me and my sister is 4 years. So for us two, we are very close. Me and my brother, on the other hand, have a significant age gap. But I always now, for me now, having craved for it, I always intentionally aimed to ensure that the two do not feel that we are so far from each other. So I maintained the gap, that to make them feel, no, even if this might not be your love language, I will always ensure that I reaffirm you. I will always ensure that I tell you that you've done well. I tell you probably you could do better, but you've done well. So that's now how probably for me I managed. But in regards to also individually, like my siblings, my two siblings are very different. My brother is a people's person and he's very out there. My sister is more introverted as opposed to maybe the three of us. But the one thing I came to realize is even myself, I became introverted in my own space. I only speak up when I need to, but when I don't, I prefer everyone just to be away from me. And over time now, I started loving that, because everyone used to assume this girl, when she was young, she was everywhere. She'd go in front of the church and dance with every beat of songs. But now I'm very, my space, my time, respect that, and yeah, people around love it. So yeah. All right, interesting. Now, Rose, here's something that perhaps we are all learning, especially for us in the parenting journey, that as much as your children are all yours, they all have different temperaments, different personalities, and they interpret your love to them differently. Talk about why this is so critical and perhaps can also instigate rivalry amongst the children.
This is critical to also add a perspective. There are children who trigger parents. Imagine a child who has your spouse's weaknesses. Yes, it's bad enough if they have your weaknesses, but they have the very weaknesses of your spouse. Imagine how this child can trigger you. There are children who mesh with their parents. You bond and you blend so well because you have similar likes and dislikes. But again, you may clash. My mother and I, we are so much alike. And so while we can be driven and we are achieving, tukikosana, we explode on each other. So I saw the good and the bad. So there's that aspect. Now, it's important for parents to understand, again, I will keep saying this, it is never the responsibility of a child to ensure there's a peaceful relationship in the home. It is the responsibility of a parent to teach and to remind that you're all different, we love you, and you complement one another, but you do not compete. And so that we don't make children think it is them, to make sure that the relationship even among their siblings is working. Right. What does that look like? The parents need to continually get feedback from the children. How do you feel about this? We would like, for example, to go to the park. Is that okay with you? And it's okay if you don't feel like. We want to go for a hike. There are those who are outdoors, they would like to go hiking. Is it okay with you? And if a child says, no, I don't feel like going for hiking, imagine it's okay. So it's okay, let's give our children the language of saying no when they are not comfortable, so that they don't go out into the world to be people pleasers. Because they learned for them to survive or coexist in the family, they have to please the parents. So continually get feedback and allow your children, let's allow our children to call us out. When they feel like, mommy, I feel, daddy, I feel this is unfair. And when they call us out, let's not be defensive. Like, how can you say that? Respect your parents. Let's listen. Because love is not what you give to somebody. Love is the way they receive it. So if somebody says you don't spend enough time with me, they are not calling you to defend yourself and start unleashing the timetable. I was with you 2 hours. What do you mean I didn't spend? I mean, it is true if they are saying because they didn't experience that you spent enough time with them. So you may need to ask, how would you like me to spend time with you? What would you like next time? And when they feedback, you take it, and next time you apologize and you desire to do better next time. Yes.
Okay, and now even as we try to sort out our technicality with Frida, help me understand how something Ruth has mentioned makes a lot of sense. The child who becomes an adult and finds a way to now adapt to what they grew up with and survive in their adult life.
2 perspectives I got, and I'm really thankful that she has been gracious enough to open her heart and share.
Yeah.
Now, our love languages as adults, they are based on what we didn't receive as children from a trauma perspective. So if, for example, you love gifts like I do, I recognize that it's because I desired gifts, beautiful dresses and shoes and hair, and I didn't have because the means were not there. So right now, my love language is gift. So I want you to reflect even to our viewer, your love language is based on something you didn't receive. And actually Ruth said it.
Yes.
So you desire to get it. So once you're aware, that looks like this. You will begin by meeting your own need. So you will not expect the people close to you to meet all your needs in that area. Because they also have their love language. So they may be loving you in their own way, and then you're expecting it in another way. And if you don't do what Frida said, asking, not making assumptions, asking, by the way, I noticed this. What do you think about it? So that aspect of it's based on your love language, on what you didn't receive. It's good for you to be aware so that you can be your own therapist. You begin taking care of yourself before anybody else can take care of you. Now, another perspective Ruth brought out is when children overfunction. They overfunction in terms of they take adult roles, because parents subconsciously give older children the responsibility to discipline, to guide, to set an example to their younger siblings.
Oh, the firstborns can say amen to that. Yeah.
So the child works so hard to try and put the family together. Unfortunately, sometimes to even take care of their own parent. The child is even responsible to make the parent happy. Because they are feeling like, if I don't do this, mom, dad will do whatever. So actually, let me just say, it is unfair and it's emotionally damaging to any child. Because these children grow older with a lot of expectations. And sometimes some of them may actually get depressed. They may even feel hopeless because they realize they cannot sort all the problems of the world.
Yeah.
They carry everything on their shoulders. They become what you call codependent adults. They take responsibility for other people's responsibilities. So when they get into romantic relationships, they attract broken people. And I'm saying this in context because there's no one who is broken.
Yeah.
But I mean, they attract somebody who looks like they need fixing. So they're always around the person who needs to be fixed, because for them there's a job here. They got validation by fixing others. Okay?
Wow.
So it's important for us as parents to try as much as possible. I know life happens, but let's put children in their place. If maybe you are listening to us and you already see your child is damaged because they are taking responsibility of the others, let them know you are a child. Mom, dad will take care of themselves, take care of you, and take care of your siblings. You are a child. This is not your place. It is a place of the parents.
Wow.
Yes.
Such a huge challenge to the parents, even as we try to figure out this sibling rivalry. Do we have Frida back? Okay, so Frida, let me bring you into this conversation. These adults have grown up. Rosa has given us a perspective of how they overcompensate when they are grown. What have you seen in the workplace?
Oh, man. I'm really struggling to hear you. I'm sorry. I just had workplace. Could you repeat your question?
Okay, so Rose has given us an example of how children that were craving a certain either affection or, you know, concern from the family of parents when growing up, overcompensate in their adulthood. How have you seen that translate in the workplace?
Of course, again, every workplace will differ, and every workplace will differ depending on who the leaders are, what are the strategic objectives. So it's hard to answer a question in a vacuum. In a workplace, there's a strategy. There are strategic objectives. There are key performance indicators. There's performance that is required from the workers or the employees. So this is just like at home we say, let us be fair, not equal. Also at work, we are equal based on the standards that we have, based on the strategic objective, the vision that has brought us together. So having these standards becomes the way of making decisions, gives us how to respond to external stimuli. When something happens, we respond based on what is required. For instance, I'm part of a workplace we are trying to hire. It's a global workplace because I sit on many boards. It's a global workspace, and we're looking for an admin. We are looking for an admin assistant, and the admin assistant will be working with people from different countries. But most of the people they'll be working with are based in America. So the question becomes, it's not that they're being unfair by looking for an American and not an African. We're looking at why do we exist? We exist to foster international trade. So if you're going to get somebody on board, what working hours do we work? The American time is very different from the Kenyan time. So if we get a Kenyan person, the time is not going to work well for them. They'll be working at night. But if we get an American person, they can find a time to work with the leaders in Africa. So the standards, how we respond to situations is based on what is our vision, what is our mission, what are the strategic objectives, what is the performance requirement, so that we are not answering questions in a vacuum. So
okay,
in the workplace,
Frida,
those are the tools that will help us respond.
Allow me
I hope you heard me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me rope that into our conversation in terms of how you were set up to think about your existence, what you bring to the table as a child. How does that now translate to how you are with other people? Remember, outside the family, there's an adult who's trying to live a life with everybody else.
I like that question, Gladys, because your foundation is what happens at home, and you're going to act out like that. If at home, and that's a really good question, because now the young workforce, the young adult workforce, most of them are entitled at home because the parents feel, I wasn't brought up with all this comfort, so they're overcompensating on their children. And as they overcompensate on their children act out like that at work. They want to be pampered more. They want to be affirmed more. They want to be mothered, really. All right, because we will have a multi-generational workforce. So you find a mother taking their child to work. This is a young adult who has studied abroad. If abroad they were able to take public means and get to college. So why are they being carried, privately here in Kenya? So when they come to work, they want to leave work because mommy is waiting for me downstairs. Yeah. Right? I need to go. Work is not done. They have to go downstairs. So you see, what happens at home is affecting the society. How we are parenting our children is causing the young, and then you hear SMEs, you hear corporates saying that the young adults are half-baked. But where did the baking start? Have you heard people say that, the young adults are half-baked, they don't know how to work, they cannot come from college and get plugged into work? The problem is not the education system. Part of it is the education system, but part of it is the family system, where they're coming from. understanding you're now a young adult, you need to be independent, know how to get to work, whether it is by Uber or whatever, but leaving work because your mom is waiting downstairs for you, what are we doing to our society?
We hear you, Frida. So now we're talking about conflict among siblings. And this is something, as we were saying, it's the training ground. Home is a training ground. You didn't get the right skill sets, and now you are in the adult world. How does that translate?
I can barely hear you, Gladys. I really want to hear you to answer your question.
Okay, let's fix that and then we'll be able to converse in a moment. Let me go back to Monique, and I'd like to hear from you in as far as your experience, and be candid here. You are all given an opportunity, all felt that you mattered, but there are some things that we all hold dear to us that we wish were addressed better. Is there something that you hold dear?
Of course, that is natural, that in every family, as you grow up, your personalities develop differently. And yes, conflict is definite in every family. And conflict resolution is something that each parent learns as they go along the way. And uniquely to my family, we, as the sisters, we lived in the diaspora, so we were exposed to different lifestyle as we grew up. But one of the consistent things I'll say that my mom and dad got to know is when it comes to conflict resolution, it's listening to both sides of the story, because there always has to be some grain of salt somewhere in the story. And even as we've grown older, it's not those ICC kind of setup where you sit down and you're, putting one person aside. It's listening to what is the premise of this and how do we resolve this. And so as we've grown into adulthood, one of the pieces that I respect about my mom, who passed away last year, and my dad now, asking, okay, you are coming to us, you're adults. This is the conflict that you have. What is the solution that you're bringing to the table? Because now we're not going to be resolving for you. You are not seeing eye to eye because of your different personas. But as you're bringing whatever the situation is to the table, what are your suggestions on how to resolve this? So it is also empowering the children to understand that conflict is natural, conflict is inevitable. It was there from Cain and Abel in the Bible. But what is the solution? Yeah?
Okay.
Yes.
Monique, when you were younger, do you feel you were set up in a way to understand how to resolve conflict amongst yourselves?
Well, I'll say, I think like a lot of families, it was something that when you have two working parents, it was, I wouldn't say set up. I would say that the generation piece is that it wasn't so inspiring to do conflict resolution. Like I think one of the panel members who said, all of you are guilty. Ukikuja, when you come and stuck in the other person, all of you are guilty. But now it is as we grew older is that we started understanding that by the time you're going to mom and dad, and that's our family setup, that as you're coming to tell on somebody, you have facts. And then you have to come up with a resolution after discipline has been out. What is the resolution, yeah? And so it also inspired us to do our own conflict resolution before you go to mom and dad.
So is it now making things better today?
It is so much more. I mean, conflict doesn't go away. Being siblings, you will always be siblings. You'll not see eye to eye 100%. But what it has done is that we have become problem solvers. That by the time even we seek the counsel of my dad, you're going there and saying, this is the situation, and this is what we should see, what should be done.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it kind of helped us, but we've had to develop it along the way. And my generation, now me being in my 40s, when we were growing up in the 80s and the 90s, that, parents were busy working and we were families of, 6 children. Nowadays you have 1 or 2 children. Now, when you have 6 children and you're working parents, it's different. There's always ICC status going on. But now we have fewer children. But for us as adults as a family, we are forced to come up with solutions when we don't see eye to eye about a situation.
Okay. Conflict resolution. How does that look like in your stable, Ruth?
Conflict resolution, I think at home for us, it's usually, most of the times we'll have thoughts before we actually go and say, yeah, so probably by that time we are all on different ends. But
And when you say fight, is it nil by mouth, or you guys are literally squabbling and quarreling?
No, we're just quarreling. And I think the one thing I appreciate within us quarreling is the fact that that's more or less how we were able to now express our voices individually at home. Because for that, it helps even my parents see that Ruth is opinionated and she's strong-willed, and she will, when she's saying that she stands by her word, she stands by her word. Modoni, on the other hand, Modoni is my sister. She will argue in her own sense, in her own mind. And so for me, I think for us, conflict resolution was always, my dad and mom would call us, we used to call it the chamber. They'd call us in the chamber and tell us, so I have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need to hear both sides, and I need you to say it when she's here, you to say it when she's here, so that both of you can hear each other's side. Because most of the times you'd find it's one person going behind and saying, oh, 1, 2, 3, and like that. So for us, it was always now, my dad would now call us and just tell us, speak or forever hold your peace. And now from there, he would now make judgment. But over time now as adults, we've learned how to let it not get to the point that we are quarreling. If we feel that we honestly can't see each other's side of the story, take some time back, step back and review and see, okay, why is she saying this? Or why is he saying this? Then from there now come back and now place all your cards on the tables, having seen both sides of the story from your own introspective, and then now from there now get a concrete and general solution for everyone.
So Rose, how can parents set up the children to learn how to resolute things amongst them?
I like the perspectives that they have brought, and I'm just going to borrow from there by saying that parents need to avoid being referees. Like you're standing there, you're saying, you're the problem. You did this, you did the other. I find excellent parenting, you know, Monique, having shared that the parents need to ask, okay, now tell me, how did it happen? Because truth be told, there's no fight for one person. The fight always takes 2 people. And remember we said this is not bullying. Bullying, if there's bullying, then the parent needs to confront the bully. But now here, the parents need to ask the children to share and what they can do differently. They also can ask the children to step aside. Like if you're busy doing something and they're fighting and they're bickering, you let them know, I appreciate that you cannot agree on this. Kindly step aside and give me peace. I want to do something so that you can resolve your issues. Because sometimes also, children bicker and fight because they want the attention of the parents. So you may find that maybe the parent is so busy and the children are fighting so that they can get attention. Negative or positive attention is still attention. So in that case, you don't send them away because they need attention. What you can do as the parent is let the children help, even in household chores. There's something they can help so that you're not overworked and overstressed, so that they are fighting for your attention. So check whether your children are busy at home or if they're idle, because idleness, again, will lead to more fights. So you can ask them, as I said, to step aside so that they can sort the issue. You can also give them logical consequences. Like if the fights keep on going on and things are not improving, you can tell them, okay, now that you cannot agree, I'm going to physically separate the 2 of you. If maybe you were in one space and you were reading or something, one of you will have to go to read in their room. Then the other one will sit here until the time that you can manage to be peaceful. I did that once to my 2 boys, and I think that was the last time they ever fought. They were 1 year apart, and I think I just got tired. So I said, you know what? You're going to be apart until the time you can agree peacefully. And now thinking about it today, I cannot remember. That was like the last time. I mean, the fight were really getting too much and getting on my nerves. And now sometimes also the parents can confront directly. Confront them directly. As a parent, you cannot afford to be avoidant. and say, oh, me, I'm introverted, I like to keep quiet. Please don't be a parent if you like to keep it to yourself. Because, I mean, you have no choice here. So if the children are fighting, you may want to confront. What makes you do this when your brother or your sister does this? What makes you do this? What is going through in your mind? What would you like? How would you like them to address you? How would you like them to respond to you? And then ask, how would you feel if your sibling did this? Role play works for children. When you say, you know, you did this, your brother was playing with the toy, you took it away, you didn't give them a warning, you didn't even ask. How would you feel if somebody took the toy away from you? So let them feel and experience. And because children are egocentric, it's always about me, I, and myself right now. So anytime you express to them that, how would it feel if I took this away? They actually backtrack and they think about it. Now, sibling rivalry doesn't end overnight just because you have done these things. Repetition deepens impression. And then children and even us, we learn by repetition. Just keep doing, just keep talking and be very consistent. Consistency is ultimately important because they will know, okay, this is what happens. So they attach, you know, their fights and their what. Just like, I think it's Monique who shared that the dad will say, okay, let's talk about the problem and what's the solution. So they learned to have a plan before they go to their father.
Okay,
Yes.
so we had touched earlier on that these are the same children that are coming out into the world to interact with others. So if you set up your child in that way, who are they bound to become when they face crisis as an adult?
Okay, great. So when the children face crisis as adults, they will be courageous to confront that crisis. They will know that the only way is through it. It's not under, it is not sideways, it's not over. So they can face the others respectively and air their opinion and get a solution. And they will know that we don't have to agree on everything. We can agree to disagree honorably. And it is okay. And there's a part that Frida brought out that I want to speak to, is that we expect siblings to support one another. Fair enough, that's good. But also let's teach them it is okay if your sibling does not support you. For those of us who are in business, sometimes you come up with this product and you think that your family members are going to be your first customers.
Yes.
Many times not, because they know you in another way.
Yeah.
So you also need to manage your expectations. Like now, anytime I see my family members watching me when I'm on a show like this,
Yes.
for me, it is something that I'm so grateful, I really appreciate. Because I don't expect my family member to watch me because they know me in another way. So let's know, family will support us, but they may not, and that's okay. So we don't keep, you know, holding them, you know, hostage and saying, and you didn't support me and your family. So that even at work, our colleagues may support us, they may not, and that's okay.
Good one.
And then now one more is that on the question you were asking, Frida, I would like to add a perspective on how it looks like at the workplace. When we make children take the responsibility of creating peace at home, they come to work and they want to take the responsibility of doing for others their work. So you find maybe you're supervising somebody and they're meant to hand a report. They delay, or they hand a report that is not really good. So you take it upon yourself and you spend the night working on that report. Instead of going and telling them, I would like this report to come in this way and that way, what do you need? Mentorship, training, or guidance? Please do this report with these specifications, so that you don't overfunction. You're continually doing for other people their work. Yours is not well done. You're angry, you're bitter, you're resentful and complaining. And maybe the people don't know.
So either way, it's counterproductive. Yeah.
You're sabotaging yourself.
Okay, great perspectives there.
Yes.
All right, we take another show, or rather break on the show. When we come back, we hear more from both Monique and Ruth. And of course, Frida, now we have her back, and she'll give us more perspectives from her end. We'll be right back. It is your world. My name is Gladys Gachanja. The conversation, Sibling Rivalry, still with Dr. Ruth Kwamboka. We still have Frida Winger, Ruth Nyamu, and Monique Strohmeyer, and a lot of great nuggets coming out of this, and a lot of light bulbs also coming on, even as some of us learn how to parent and instill the right skill sets for our children. Now, Frida, you have these 3 boys, and I'm wondering, as much as you say they have learned to communicate, cooperate, have you taught them what Rose just said, that it's okay not to agree with me and it's okay not to support me?
I was laughing when I heard Rose say that. Remember, I said every family, every institution needs to have their standard. So we have defined what support looks like for us. Support is not necessarily when I start a business, you have to support my business. Because remember, 3 individuals. One is a performing artist, one is in IT, and one is in logistics and procurement. So how they support each other does not mean that they have to buy from each other. But when I need logistics and procurement, if I ask you a question, you can answer me if you know. It is not mandatory for you to buy from me. And I think the point, not I think, but the point that Dr. Rose brought is very critical, because as a life coach, I'm a life and work coach. And in work, we talk about business. For business owners, we let them know that validating your product should not be with the family. Validating your product should be with your target audience. So even with business owners, we encourage them not to hold their families hostage, because your family and friends are not your best clients. They will support you. They may not give you the appropriate feedback. They will always pat you on the back. And sometimes you need the truth. So there's a different thought of, there's a different thought for me over there. Yeah. So support in family is when you're starting a business, we encourage people to have cordial family relationships. Of course, it will not always happen, but we encourage it because in business, there's that time that things are going to go haywire. Things went haywire for me in 2017, and without the support of my oldest sister, I don't think I'd still be running Passion Profit today. She did not support me by buying from me, but she supported me by listening to me and also taking a stake in the family. I was asking different people, but I chose her because of my relationship with her. So the big thing here is, what are the standards in your family institution? What does support look like? All right. So defining these things is very critical. So one big thing for everyone across is communication. We don't communicate very well. We make assumptions. We have a rule: express what you expect. That is a rule we have at home. That is a rule we have at work. That is a rule I have in coaching. Do not make assumptions. We tend to think common sense is common, but I'm finding that common sense is not common anymore. So you must let people know what your common sense is, and you must express what you expect. And if you don't get it, you express again. We don't speak up, especially as women, and it's all women here. We tend to assume that, I should get the job, I should do this or the other. No, raise up your hand, ask for what you want. Don't assume that things will be handed over to you because of a title or a position. No, we must learn to ask for what we want.
Isn't that a very critical also skill to pass on to our children? Also voice your concerns, make sure you're heard, right?
Yeah, I have a granddaughter, Gladys. My granddaughter is 8. And when she came home crying one day that they called her a name, I told her, "What is your name?" I asked her, "What is your name?" She told me, "Tashania." "And what were they calling you?" "Whatever name they said." So I said, "So why are you crying? They were not calling you. You look right back at them and let them know what your name is."
Good one. Good one. Good one. Now, still on business and not agreeing on all things and not necessarily buying from you, do you think from your experience, family members, siblings should go into business together?
Again, it's about relationships. First of all, everything is founded on what are your beliefs. Your beliefs will drive your behavior. Now, in business, families working together is dependent on what is the competence required. I tell business owners that all the time. What is the competence required? Does the family have that competence? What is the standard and the structure? Is the family delivering based on the standard and the structure? If yes, they need to be hired and paid. If no, they need to be outplaced and replaced. It's really as simple as that. So it's not about fair, it's about having it's not about equal, it's about having standards and following them. So you're not here because you're family, you're here because you can deliver. And if you cannot deliver, let's love each other at home, because love is the standard at home.
Ooh, talk about tough love. Talk about tough love, but that's the reality.
No, it is just love.
Yeah.
It is just love. Because in a business, you're supposed to deliver. Even at home, there are results that I expect from you as my children. All right?
Yes. So
if you're delivering on those results, you will get celebrated. If you're not delivering on those results, we will have some candid conversations. So to ensure that you know what needs to be done so that you can change. So the key thing, Gladys, even as I hear, the other panelists speak, is communication is a critical skill. Brian Tracy said 80% of our success is based on how we communicate. One thing we can teach people, our children at home, even spouses, 90% of our troubles is because we don't communicate.
Okay.
We are expecting things we have not expressed. That is where all this rivalry comes from. I love the Bible. It says, when somebody curses you, go to that person. But normally, what do? When we're in conflict with a person, we tend to tell everybody else before we've told the person. And the thing continues to fester. We must learn to communicate for any rivalry to, because rivalry will be there. Conflict must be there, because remember, we are not the same. So there's what I'm expecting, you are expecting something different. So conflict will arise. Conflict is neither good nor bad. It is what it is. How we deal with it is what makes it, what makes it good or bad.
Very well said. And I'd like to hear from Monique and Ruth, starting with Monique. Some of these things are very intentional, where you say, okay, fine, I understand the relationship I have with my siblings. There are things I can do with one person. There are things I can't do with another. But of importance is the unity you carry on into your adulthood that perhaps will heal some of the wounds you feel you carry from your childhood. Are you intentional about spending time with your family members, or has everyone grown and gone separately?
Well, for me, our family, we've made it intentional to be together when we have family functions. We're always together. In fact, sometimes we're concerned we're together a bit too much. But it has to be one of those, as we grow older, as we start to lose loved ones, you realize you have to make time for each other. There is less time for conflict. I also want to touch on one thing that Freda talked about when it comes to the sibling rivalry between the boy and the girl child in the family. That is a unique piece. It is real. Sometimes, as the daughters, you feel the sons are favored compared to you. And that's something that my parents made intentional that we were made to know that we are equal. So as we've grown into adulthood, no one is treated better than the other. Yeah, situations might be unique. Addressing issues might be unique to 2 or 3 others, but we have to make a conscious decision to come together. When there are times when we can go aside without involving the others, when it's a one-on-one conflict, we can decide to resolve without involving the rest of it. The rest of the family, as opposed to making it where one person is a black sheep and then you talk about the one person. So you're talking about intentionality. Yes, you have to make it intentional, and you have to make it a conscious decision that when you wake up every morning, you are loving your family. We try to contact each other on a weekly basis, even via WhatsApp. We try to, when you have differences, sort it aside. If it's too big, then that's when the family comes in.
Okay, makes sense, makes a lot of sense. Ruth, she talked about black ships. There's somebody who said that in itself made them literally pack and leave their own family because they were castigated to be different just because they acted different, felt about things differently, dealt with life differently. Is this something that perhaps you've experienced?
I wouldn't say I've experienced directly, but indirectly I have friends who would come and share with me some things that it would really hurt me to hear that we've gotten to that position, that we've gotten to the space where in your own family, in your immediate, the best relationship, let me call it the best relationship, that's the family, where it's the most immediate relationship. You learn to be with people and to interact with people. You find that you cannot necessarily be yourself, and thus you find that you constantly want to just be away from it. And I've had cases where you feel that people now start saying that their friends are now their family. So you find that even within your sibling circle, you don't even communicate. I experienced that for a period in my life, and I still struggle with it sometimes, because you find that based on how maybe particular situations and environments have formed who you are, you find that you necessarily don't feel like you're gelling and you're connecting with your immediate family. And so, again, you go seeking it out, because ideally you feel that you want to feel that whole connection, that family bond. And it can be a good thing, and it can also be a bad thing, because along the way, for me, I have now found friendships that are very strong and that they're very intentional, where it's not just you're my friend for good times, or you're my friend, you will not call me out, no, but you find that you get now that sistership in a different setting. And just to echo what Frida said, I think it's important for even in a family unit to understand that in as much as we are family, we have borders. For me, I always apply by the policy that whatever applies to my parents, applies to my friends, applies to anyone else who would come into my life, whether or not I love you, whether or not you're a stranger. There are borders that if you cross that line, no matter who you are, will not be in a good space together. So for me, I think these things happen, and it's just dependent on how you choose to let it apply in your life. You can choose to apply it negatively, you can choose to apply it positively, but at the end, it will all be based on how is it helping you as opposed to oppressing you.
Okay, now Rose, we're hearing from the children and how they have adapted to what they were exposed to. You keep saying the parents are the captains of this ship. How can the parents ensure that they foster that oneness of a family, so that these children can be able to be in each other's lives and see eye to eye? Because somebody says the moment a child connects with the world better than the family, you've lost them.
Thank you. I really appreciate the perspectives I'm getting from the other panelists. I completely agree with what Frida has said, what support looks like. I completely am of the same mind. So your question was
that we need, what is it that parents need to do to foster oneness in the family when they're still young, so that they understand despite our differences, we need to stay together, because some have severed ties just because they're not connected to their families anymore.
Great. So number one is loving the children unconditionally. Letting them know that no matter what, even when you have failed and the world is against you, I will always be by your side or on your side or behind you. And that's what Frida said, support. We will always support you. We will correct you gently and in love, but we will always support you. And then having family values. Family values are important, especially from a very early age. You know, like for example, in my family, there's no violence. You don't shout at somebody, yell at them, hit somebody, or say a mean word. You don't do that. You know, so family values from a very early age, and then parents are to model, because you cannot be telling them that there is no violence and you're violent towards each other. So you model as you keep on, emphasizing that in this family, these are our family values. You don't bring them later. Then the children, well, if maybe you have learned later, you can apologize. You say, we realize we have raised you in this manner. We are sorry, and we desire to do it differently. So that you don't introduce another set and the children are confused. They're like, okay, so what has happened now? So you need to give it a break in terms of, this is where we are, this is what you've been doing, So again, let me talk about now what parents should not do. So I've said what they should do.
Yes.
Parents should never at any one time compare a child to another. Sometimes I used to baptize it by saying best practices. Can we learn something from your brother? Then one of my sons said, no, I can't learn anything because I'm me. So it's important not to compare. We just say, can I help you be the best that you can be? And parents also need to avoid confiding in one child about another. Sometimes parents think that one child is too sensitive to be told certain things. So they confide in one child and they tell them, don't tell your brother, don't tell your sister, because she may not handle. So therein you create a camp of those who are in and those who are out. Yes? So if it cannot be confided to all the children, unless it's something to do with that particular child, if it's a family situation, it's better you process it, you get ready, and then you break it down to them. So do not tell children, I'm telling you this, but don't tell your brothers. Another thing is that we have a culture that, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but there are cultures in certain communities of naming children. I know you're familiar with that, on which side of the family.
Yes.
So if I have 2 boys and 2 girls, 2 will be named after my parents and 2 after my spouse. So we have had children who feel mom favors us because we are named after her parents. They even use a pet name. So I'll be calling them mommy, daddy, and then the other one, because my father-in-law has offended me, sometimes I'm looking at this child and I'm like, this is a person who has offended me. So sometimes that can be, it is a good thing, but it can be perceived in that way. So the parents also need to be consciously aware that what message are we sending to the children by this naming system. And when parents give the responsibility of to an older child to discipline or to take care of younger children. So they will come home, and if the children have misbehaved, the younger ones, they will discipline the older one. Where were you? And this older one is also a child.
Yes.
Where were you when your siblings were doing this? Supervise the homework. Do this and do the other. No, it is not the responsibility of a child. They may help. Maybe you're busy and you're asking, would you like to do homework with your brother? You see, you're giving them a choice. If they tell you, no, mom, I'm too busy, you're like, okay, maybe next time. If they say it's okay, I'll do homework with my brother, acknowledge that it is not their responsibility, but they are doing maybe because you're doing something.
But the setup is that you will expect them to do what you ask, not to hear their opinion.
So when you do that, the older child feels that the younger ones are favored. And they feel they were mistreated, they were not treated fairly because they were made to carry the responsibility of the younger siblings. I remember in my family, when one sibling would make a mistake, you are thrashed properly, all of you, because you were there, and you're even spanked for future mistakes. Because the fact that they have done it, you may also do it later on. So parents should resist the urge to load an older sibling with responsibilities. Another one is that there are parents who use a child to meet their emotional needs. Let me explain. You may find if a parent does not have close relationships with adults, they use a child. They find there's a child who is empathetic, who seems to listen more, who is your go-to person. So the parent is always reaching out to this child to meet their emotional needs. And it makes the other children feel mom or dad favors so and so, because they're always calling them. They want to go somewhere, you go with them. I was reading something about one parent who would go for prayer walks with the son, and they discuss the Bible and they connect so intimately, and the other children and the spouse at home, they're feeling like, what? And then this child they feel like they're a partner to the other parent. So the others, actually the other children would feel resentful towards this other child. And I think even in the Bible, we know the story of Joseph. And we know how the father worsened because Joseph was what I think they call a snitch. Like he would come and report. Then the father even rewards by buying a coat of many colors. And this fuels the sibling rivalry.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, so parents, again, this is how you can be fueling sibling rivalry amongst your children. But then again, we've also learned on what we can do to ensure that we equip our children effectively. Well, even as we bring this conversation to an end, I'd like us to look through what it is that we can do on a personal to ensure that we pass on the right skill sets to our children, because I think that is now the challenge to us who have better information on how to parent. Let me start off with you, Monique. You are a mother of one. How are you being intentional bringing up your own child to ensure that in the future she knows how to maneuver these minds?
Of course, with my only little girl, she interacts quite a bit with her cousins, and all of them are single, only children. But it's to make her feel unique, yet not to feel more special compared to her cousins. It's when in her interactions with other children that she knows she is loved, she is secure, she's unique, but it doesn't mean that she has to put down the other cousins for attention's sake. Yeah? And I see that the same thing with what my father does now as a grandfather, where all the grandchildren are unique. And so from our experience, I think that's one thing I'm passing down to my daughter, is that she is able to be loved, and she can love other people without competing necessarily for my attention. And to know that also sibling rivalry can be a very positive thing. That it doesn't necessarily have to be a fighting piece. It can be an inspiring thing that I want her to be inspired to do better than somebody else in a positive way.
Okay, very well said. And we're still taking your feedback, by the way. Remember that hashtag new normal, even as we understand if you have experienced sibling rivalry and how you've been able to handle it. That hashtag is new normal. Kuloba Ezekiel says some of us fought each other over chicken heads. There's a belief in Bungoma that if children eat chicken head, they become sharp in class. But when I grew up, I discovered that it was an adult conspiracy to confine children to non-meaty parts of a chicken. Kulava, thank you for making us smile. Yuri says grown-up children have the option to take up the responsibility to ensure there is peaceful relationships between the parents and the siblings. Saying never is a single-parent attitude. I hear you. Thank you for sharing. Kennedy Ariro says in the parenting process, many also become dysfunctional in the event that their parents fail in their parental obligations. Yes, and that's what I'd like us to talk about even as we close. Lawyer Mesha Kutieno says, very true, and a firstborn is also forced at times to stop acting their age and show leadership from a very young age. I know this firsthand because I am one. Lawyer Meshach, thank you for sharing, and I think that's what Rose was alluding to earlier on. Allow a child to be a child, whatever, you know, bond they are in the family. So over to you, Ruth. What are some of the lessons that you're walking into perhaps, you know, your future with and hopefully pass on to your future children?
For me, there are things that I think are going to be very important. Express yourself. Come to me and communicate. Don't go behind the corners and express yourself in other ways or throw tantrums. For me, I always feel direct. Come to me and talk to me. It's the same thing I apply even with my siblings. Come and express yourself to me. Come and tell me this is what you feel, this is what you want, this is what you want to say. And that way I'll be able to know that that's what you think.
Do you do the same thing to your siblings or for your siblings? Every
single time. I always tell them, if I feel that you have overstepped, I will come and tell you. Like recently we had an argument with my sister and I told her that I love you. I always try and tell you first what I love, then I tell you the mistake. Because for me, I always feel that let's not think that you're the problem, let's fight the problem. So I will tell you first I love you, and then I tell you you crossed a line, and now this is why you crossed a line. So for me, that's one thing that I will enforce. Express yourself, because that's the only way I will also know what to do and how to do it, and I will know how to give you the best support from my end to you. Okay. So that's going to be how, for me, I would see how. But also I would say, even for parents and upcoming parents, feel free to engage with their children and give them the freedom, even no matter the age. Like I think that I get to see mostly with my youngest brother. He gets to tell us some things that even as you take a step back and you're like, wow, okay. Yeah, we needed to remember, we needed to also be reminded, and to just be able to just accept that our children are now becoming, they're in an era where expression is very key for them, and in whatever form, just control it, but let them express themselves, because it does something to a child's development as they grow, as they become an individual who also gets to love what they have to say, and also doesn't just accept things haphazardly and just from anywhere. So it just gives them a formation that they know that whatever they're saying can be heard, and they can voice their opinions in a both respectful and a both intelligent manner. So.
Okay, very well said. Thank you. And Frida, I think it has been emphasized over and over again, both by you and the other panelists, that these children, how we bring them up in the home setup, translates to who they are as adults in the future. And being a life coach or work coach, you're a parent yourself, seeing this in your own children. Your parting shot.
My parting shot is, let us define. Thank you so much for having this conversation. The panelists were amazing. I would like to seek all of them out, especially Dr. Rose. My parting shot is, let's remember we are all human beings first. None of us is perfect, but we are progressive. Progressive means that we can learn the traits of success, but we need to define for ourselves what a successful relationship looks like, whether it's at home, at work, or with others in the community. And at work, whether you're self-employed or employed, because many times we think at work is when you're working for somebody else, but we are all working. You're working for somebody else, we are working for ourselves. So let us be extremely aware of what we want in life, and also let us be aware of what others want, so that when we come together, we are each contributing value, because we are all valuable. So conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. Rivalry will happen. How we correct it is what is going to be critical, and we will need to have values, individual values, family values, work values, and also know the values of the people that we are engaging with. And for all this to happen, we'll need to communicate. We'll need to learn how to communicate, whether we are shy, candid, or choleric, or whatever our personality type is. Communication can be learned, and that is the one skill I encourage everybody to learn for the success of their relationships. Thank you very much, Gladys.
All right. And of course, Rose, I mean, we've talked about sibling rivalry, and we are saying it's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on what is a harness they're in. So the question begs, is it possible to have healthy rivalry among siblings, or is that an oxymoron?
So healthy rivalry based on the way it's perceived. You know, it's the way somebody experiences it. So let me say this. If siblings meet every end of the year, they share their progress, they share what they have done, and then maybe areas they would like the family to support, and they're cheered on. That happens a bit in the family I'm married to. And people cheer you on. They're like, last time you said you're going to achieve this, and you have done, and you're congratulated. In that way, it is positive. But if siblings are forever working hard at outdoing my brother, outdoing my sister, and it's about, you know, the way they say PhD, pull him down or pull her down. If it's about I need to pull her down so that I step, so that then I look like I'm the one who is doing best, there's a problem. But if the motivation is to encourage one another, be the best that we can be, but not be like the other person, be the best that they can be, then that's okay. So I want to say it is the way it's perceived, it's the way it's experienced, it is the impact that it has on the family.
And perhaps you can just underscore the importance or the role of the parent in all of this.
Thank you so much, and that's very important. I like ending there saying, as parents, we need to be conscious. We need to interrogate our own patterns growing up, because some of us have subconsciously or inadvertently passed unhealthy patterns of competition to our children. So we need to interrogate. We say, I was raised in this way, but is this really okay? And if you realize it's not okay, you always have an opportunity to go back in time and, can I say, repair the damage. Nobody is so badly damaged that they cannot make repairs even within a very short time. And I like what one of the viewers has said, that adult children have a responsibility to go back and try and recover, you know, restore. And that's okay. If you realize you come from a family that has been fractured by sibling rivalry, you are an adult now. You're no longer a child. So you need to go back, because what you do not sort out, it will be replicated in dysfunctional patterns in your children and your children's children. So you owe it to your legacy. If not for your family, maybe you don't care, but you owe it to your own children and those coming after you, by you going back and saying, you know what, this happened, I have forgiven you, I have forgiven, and let's move ahead. But also manage your expectations, because you may want things to go back and work seamlessly, but the other people are not ready. So manage your expectations. Say, for me, this is how it impacted me, and I'm sorry, I'm willing to work with you. I have extended the olive branch. When you're ready to talk, let's talk. So that you're not controlling and making them feel emergency. We have to talk. Let them know when you're ready, I am willing to talk about this and to go back and restore you know, whatever time that we have lost working together. Thank you.
Wow. That is such a good place to leave this conversation, even as we understood how to handle sibling rivalry. Thank you, Dr. Rose Kwamboka-Misati, certified family trauma professional, Frida Owenga, who is an entrepreneur, life coach, work coach, and of course, a parent herself, Ruth Nyamu, who is a graduate student, and Monique Strohmeyer, who is an infection prevention and control nurse. Thank you, ladies, for being part of this conversation and being candid about your own experiences on the same. Now, tomorrow, my colleague Victor Kiprop will be focusing on voter apathy seen during the ongoing voter registration. Yes, the process has been extended by another week, but the question begs, why are Kenyans not prioritizing this process? Is this telling of the upcoming 2022 general elections? Well, my colleague Victor will be delving into that from 7 a.m. See you then.